Welcome to the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man Victor Pride. And right here on the Podcast for Winners, we're bringing you motivation and mindset for the killers and real dealers, the makers and the takers, the winners and the grinners, and goddamn, even the sinners too. Let's get started. Well, hello, my friendly friends. Welcome back to another edition of the Bold and Determined Podcast with your man, Victor Pride. And today I've got good news and I've got bad news for you. And it's actually the exact same news. Would you like the good news or the bad news first? I'll pull it off like a Band-Aid. I'll give you the bad news first. This podcast is not going to be released every Thursday anymore. It might not be released again. That's the bad news. Here's the good news. We're going to go back to the way things were in the beginning. That means I'm going to give you the written word in articles. So it is one trade for another. We are trading the podcast for the written word, for the great articles of boldanddetermined.com. And ooh-wee, this is the 42nd episode of the Bold and Determined Podcast. That means for approximately 42 weeks, we have been on this long and winding road, this wonderful journey we have found ourselves on. And I believe it's time to move on. And I'll try to explain why. You see, there is one very important thing you need to listen to when it comes to business, when it comes to life, when it comes to anything. There's one very important thing that you must not ignore, that you must listen to. This one very important thing is called intuition. And I've been able to succeed in the ways that I have succeeded because I listened to my intuition. My intuition said, start this blog, write these articles, try to help these people, and you will make enough money to live. So that's what I did. I started the blog. I had no idea how to make money from it, but I kept at it because I had this thing called faith. Or rather, I knew because my intuition told me, if you just don't quit, it will become everything you want it to be. So that's what I did. I listened to my intuition. Now, I find myself at the crossroads of the podcast world or the blog world. And as you might know, I don't multitask well. I do one thing to the exclusion of all others. That's why you have not seen an article on Bold and Determined for many months now, maybe 6 months or more. It has been all podcast all the time. And we came to some strange and wonderful truths on this podcast. But intuition tells me it's time to return to the source. It is time to put your focus back in the good words of B&D. Because as fun as the podcast is, we cannot pretend that it is as well done as the blog is. You see, even though I don't enjoy writing, I don't enjoy creating articles, it is what I happen to be blessed at doing. The podcast, on the other hand, it's fun. It's a fun thing to do, but it does not replace what I was born to do. And it should not replace what I was born to do. And what I was born to do was give the message via the medium of the written word. And we're going to return to the source. So the number one and main motivating reason for this change is because this is what intuition tells me to do. Intuition tells me this is the right thing to do. And I'll try to explain why intuition says that. You see, on this podcast, we are very swayed by modern events. Our focus is on the modern world. What's happening today? It's all about today. What it does not focus on is the classic, the things that never change. And if you don't create classic content, your content will be forgotten. So if we always talk about the things that are going on today, people are going to forget about it tomorrow. But if we speak about the issues that are timeless and classic, they will always resonate with the people. And that is where I have failed you, in that we do not speak about the classic and the timeless. We speak about the right now and the problems with the right now. And it has occurred to me that when you start to fight these modern problems, you become just as bad as these modern problems. Whatever you fight is what you become in the end. And the only way to conquer it is to rise above it and not be a part of it. So even though there are things in this modern world that don't please me and that I don't enjoy, the act of fighting those things gives them power. And if you want something to fail, if you want something to be powerless, you don't give it power. You let it fail on its own. So that's what I'm going to do. The modern problems will always come and go. There will always be some sort of modern problem. And the only thing that happens to us when we yammer on about the modern problems is that our own happiness and serenity and bliss drops, goes away. We become as the problems. We start to identify as the problems. That's not the true way. The true way is to step back, look at all things that are happening in the world, but don't judge them. Look at them. See them as they are. perceive them as they are, not the way you wish them to be, but the way that they are, and act in accordance with the way things really are. When you act in accordance with the way things really are, you act in harmony with the world and in harmony with nature. When you don't act in the way things are, when you try to fight the way things are, you act in a disharmonious nature. Always fighting. This injustice or that injustice. That's wrong. It should be the other way. What that does is causes strife in your life, and it causes strife in the people you are speaking to. It does not help them rise above. It does not help them find whatever success they're looking for. All it does is create strife, and I can't be a part of that anymore. We must rise above, and if we cannot rise above, then you must rise above, and I must rise above. Somebody famous said, "You must be the change you wish to see." And I'll tell you, friends, it's because of the podcast that I am able to return to the source. It is because of the discussions you and I have had that have led me to the only obvious conclusion. And that obvious conclusion is very difficult to put into words. I can do it if I write it, but if I try to speak it to you, the words escape me. I will say that I have become aware of the spirit of divinity. Now, you can call that whatever you want. You can call it God, you can call it nature, you can call it the universe. But I have come to realize that there is something above all of those things. There is something above God. There is something above the universe. There is something above nature. And for this, we don't really have a word for it. Some people call it source or the source. Lao Tzu called it the Tao. I believe Jesus called it the Father. And that's not referring to Yahweh or Jehovah. It's referring to the source of all things, the creator of all things, the creation that is creating itself. I don't know what this thing is, but I know that it is there. I know that it is present in all of us. And I have felt this spirit, as it were. And it's only because of the podcast that I've been able to come to the conclusion that there is this force in the world, a God above God. And this force, if you try to find it through a religion, if you try to find it through a book, if you try to find it through a teacher or a preacher or a priest, you won't be able to. Because this force, the source, the spirit, is actually inside of all of us. It has always been there. It will always be there. And if we want to hear from it, all we have to do is listen to our intuition. Because the intuition is the voice of the source. The intuition is the way. It's the right way. It will always be the right way. It will never be the wrong way. And many times what we do is that we don't listen to our own intuition. We listen to what other people have to say. Sometimes those other people are well-meaning, but they have it wrong and they lead us astray. The only thing that can be done is to listen to your own inner voice, your own intuition, always, at all times, because it will never lead you astray, because it is the voice of what Jesus called the Father, what Lao Tzu called the Tao, what many people call the source, or the way, or the light, or the life, whatever you want to call it, God above God, whatever you want to call it. It is in you. It is abundant in you. We block it when we listen to other people instead of listening to ourselves. The only reason I'm in the position I'm in today is because I didn't listen to other people. I listened only to my own intuition. Do you think anybody believed me 10 years ago when I said a blog is going to give me a life and give me freedom? You think anybody believed that? I'll tell you, there is one person who believed it. That person was me. Now, this voice is telling me, you must stop doing this podcast. You must start putting your message in the written word. And the problem with the podcast format is that I do it every week without fail. And when you do something every week without fail, you don't give yourself time to think about the message and to develop the message. You get it out prematurely. It's like eating fruit before it is ripe. What does fruit taste like before it's ripe? It tastes bitter. So I have found myself in many of these episodes sounding bitter because the fruit that I'm trying to bring is not ripe yet. It can't be ripe by following a schedule. The fruit will be ripe when it's time to be ripe. That's when you can pick it. Not before, not after. And one thing that I have always followed until recently is that I have always had the patience to wait to publish the work until it was the right time to publish it. I've always had that patience. Now I don't exercise that patience because I cannot exercise that patience because I come to you every single Thursday. And every single Thursday, I feel it more and more. The message is not ready yet. It needs a little bit more time. It needs a little bit more time. It needs to be refined. You're giving away the raw ingredients rather than baking a nice cake for all the people. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to refine the message and give you the finished product. Instead of coming at you every single week without fail, I'm going to come to you when the message is ready. If the message is ready, I will be there. If the message is not ready, I will not be there. And Like I said, you've got to be the change you wish to see. I see in myself an addiction to content, YouTube in particular. I'm going to break that addiction. If I wish to break the addiction in me, there's something I cannot be. And that something is, I cannot be the one who makes you addicted. You cannot be addicted to somebody else's content and be yourself. You're always going to be living in somebody else's world. If you're always waiting for their message, you have to understand that the message is inside yourself. It's called intuition or instinct or a gut feeling. That's the voice of the source, the Father, the God above God. You have to listen to that voice. And when you start to listen to others nonstop, guess what happens to that inner voice? It gets blocked. It gets ignored. And in the past, when I created the great work, I never followed any schedule except for the own inner schedule that says this is ready or this is not ready. And you know what? I was rewarded handsomely when I broke my own rules, when I stopped following the inner voice, when I started listening to other people. I paid the price for that. You see, I have understood fully now the only thing you can do in this life is to follow the inner voice at all costs, no matter what the expense looks like it's going to be. You must be true to thine own self. Somebody said, that is all you can do, and that's all I'm going to do. The only thing I'm going to do is pick the fruit when it's ripe. If it's not ripe, I'll not pick the fruit. You see, what I'm trying to do is, I don't want to learn more. I don't want to have more knowledge. All I want to do is clear the mind of all of the noise so that I can hear the inner voice. So, I wish to do away with all knowledge. Everything I think I know, let it go. The inner voice knows everything. The mind doesn't. There are three parts to the human body, the mind, body, and spirit. The mind and the body think they know, but they don't know. The spirit knows everything because the spirit is the spark of the divine creator. And if you always want to be led astray, then don't listen to that voice. But if you want to be led the right way, you must always listen to that voice. And to me, that voice is crystal clear. Crystal clear. It says, don't take the stew off of the heat before it's done cooking. So there it is, my friendly friends. If a podcast is ready, then I will bring you a podcast. If a podcast is not ready, I will not bring you a podcast. I will be putting my focus into the written word because even though I don't particularly enjoy it, and doing the podcast is much easier. And let me say that for you. The podcast is 100 times easier than writing an article. I put every ounce of my energy, every essence of my soul into the good articles. With the podcast, I just turn on a microphone and talk. Blah, 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 blah. But with an article, it's very different. It is something that gives you energy. It energizes you after you read it. And my great fear is that not every podcast I do energizes you. And I know that it makes some people feel fear, feel depression, feel scared. And you should never feel these things. When you have faith in the inner voice, you have faith in the God above God, the Spirit, the source, there is nothing to fear. Fear goes away. It just goes away. And it happens naturally. And gratitude comes in. So I don't feel fear about stopping the podcast. I could lose all of my subscribers. Oh no, I don't care. Everybody could leave and I would still do the same thing. Or everybody can stay and I will still do the same thing. That thing is called listening to your own intuition. And it took me a little while to finally start listening. Intuition has always been there. And it was always saying, this is not really the right way to go about things. You need to be above it and you need to bring the message when it's ready. Not before, but when it's ready. The message was always there. I just didn't listen. But thanks to some of the answers that I have found through doing this podcast for you now for 42 episodes, I've come to realize I've returned full circle, right back to the source, right back to where we started. Write the article, put everything into the article, and then shut up. It's as simple as that. Do the work, shut up. When another piece of work is ready, do the work, then shut up. The more you talk, the more you give away of your own essence. When you talk without having something special to say, you give away so much of your essence. This is why you see people on YouTube, for example, who've been on YouTube for a long time. They don't have much of a soul left. They don't have much of an essence left because they give it all away before it's ready. They give the fruit away before it's ripe. And if you want your work to be meaningful, you can't do that. So it's really as simple as that. But going back to the source is the written word, the articles. And before we get into today's questions, I want to read you this comment from Jonathan. Jonathan says, a few days into monk mode, I eat only meat outside while sitting on my dock on the lake. I've been hyper-productive lately. I used to use Adderall to get things done, but this is amazing. I thought I'd feel hungry, but I don't. I just feel great. My allergies are gone. My body looks great. My skin is clear. I've been growing my business, and instead of being stagnant and lazy, I decided to grow it as fast and as hard as I can and added another $5,000 in yearly revenue in today's contracts. I'm 22. I've got my company with employees and things are looking great. My friends all work jobs, but I own my time. They watch TV shows and talk about someday how they'll all be rich, but they don't want to work for it. I'll always owe my success to myself, but I owe a lot of the lessons I know to this place right here, which is B&D. I got real lucky to stumble upon it years ago. I've got no expensive things, no car payment, no house payment, no credit cards even. I put my money right back into my business to make it grow. Thanks for everything, man. You really helped a lot. Over the years, I've received more comments like this than you could ever possibly imagine. It all comes from the written word. The podcast is fun. It's got a lot of good stuff. The real magic is in the written word, because the written word makes your brain turn on. It makes things click in your mind. You see, watching something on TV or even listening to something is much more passive. The art of reading is that you must do it. You must be engaged in it. You can turn on a podcast and listen to it at any time, doing the dishes, going about your day, mowing the lawn, sitting on the subway train. When you are reading something, you must be present in it. You must be fully in it. You must be fully in the moment. There's nothing else you can do other than read something. And that's why the written word of B&D is so powerful. That is why Jonathan is now just a few days into the Monk Mode program, which is a book. He's a few days into the Monk Mode program, and all these great things are happening to him as if by magic, as if by some divine force is coming down and bestowing these wonderful things upon him. So great work, Jonathan. Leo Sinclair, at the end of the last episode, Leo Sinclair asked, "Hey Vic, what do you think about cryptocurrency and that enabling a possibility of going gold?" I think what he's trying to say is that, can I make money by getting into cryptocurrency? And the answer is yes, you can. Yes, you can. There was a great wave of Bitcoin a few years ago, and it has leveled now. I know a lot of people who were into Bitcoin and were able to make a lot of money. They were able to no longer worry about money in the future. So there was a lot of opportunity in Bitcoin in the past, and there's still going to be a lot of opportunity in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Personally, I think that cryptocurrencies are going to be the future of payment. I think that the fiat money that we use today is going to go away eventually, and it's going to be replaced by some form of digital currency. And I know there's going to be resistance to that because people are going to say, but digital currency, it's not backed by anything. It exists only on the computer. Well, the reality is that fiat money, our paper money, is not backed by anything either other than our belief. There's no backing to the money that we use today. We just believe that it's money, so it's money. The same can be true for digital currency. If we believe it's money, it is money. And I'll tell you what, we already believe that digital currency is money. Go to your local supermarket. See how people are paying. Are they paying in cash or are they paying in credit card? Your credit card is a digital currency. So we already use digital currency, and we have been using digital currency for a long time. When I go to Starbucks in the States and I get a black iced coffee, the people in front of me usually hold their phone up to pay for whatever soy latte that they're getting. They pay with their phone already. If you look around you, you'll see that everybody's already on their phone anyways, and they're not using cash anyway. It only makes sense that they're going to combine the technology with the money and make everything a digital currency. So I believe that is going to be the currency of the future, which is a digital currency. Is it going to be Bitcoin or another? It's probably going to be another, but who knows? It would be a good idea if you were to keep an eye on the cryptocurrency game and start paying much more attention to that, and even start putting a little bit of money into cryptocurrency if you have the means. Because if it's going to be the future, and I think it probably is, because fiat money cannot last forever, and as we know, all things are becoming digitized, digital. So it only makes sense that the money becomes digital as well. And of course, if you play the game the right way, if you make some shrewd moves, you can make a lot of money buying and trading in your cryptocurrency. You can make enough that you don't have to work a real job ever again. Here's a little secret for you. To make money, you don't actually have to work to do it. You don't actually have to spend your time in exchange for money. If you spend the time to learn about currency, about trading, about cryptocurrency, if you spend the time to learn, you can utilize that knowledge and turn it into money. They say knowledge is power, don't they? Knowledge is currency. So you don't actually have to work for a living. Most people at the top don't actually work for a living. They use their knowledge in exchange for money. You can do the same thing with cryptocurrency. Now, if you're haphazard about what you do, You're going to lose money. I first bought Bitcoin back in 2012, actually. And at that time, I didn't know much about much. I had some Bitcoin and it ended up getting stolen from me in the Mt. Gox scandal. There was a company called Mt. Gox, and the owner of the company, I guess, ran away with everybody's Bitcoin. I lost the Bitcoin. That left a sour taste in my mouth for a number of years. But I'm starting to come back to the idea and the realization that cryptocurrencies are probably going to be the future. So I've got a few dollars in Bitcoin right now. I don't have too much, but I am aware that there's probably going to be a future there. And we actually take Bitcoin at redsupplements.com. I sell all the books via Bitcoin as well as your regular everyday digital currency, which we call fiat. You will have to excuse the noise in the background. They are apparently working on a building somewhere next door. Please excuse that. Christoph asks, in order to win a spiritual war, young men need to be financially set and be able to leave the system. Blogging and online business are great, but the wealth needs to be preserved. How? You can't leave it as cash in the bank. I'm generally skeptical about stock investing, but I have to say I found two decent strategies for wealth preservation. Investing in stock market index funds, or the second option, the much better option is value investing, finding undervalued companies and buying them. Okay, so the question is, how can you be able to leave the system and preserve your wealth? Those are great questions, and the answer is much more simple than it appears to be. The answer is, listen to your own intuition. Trust in yourself. If you have trust in the intuition, you will understand that you will never go hungry in this world. You will never be without. If you always follow the inner voice, the inner intuition, you will never be without. You will always be provided by this thing called the universe. You always will be. It's only when you don't listen to the voice, when you go against your own instincts, that you lose money. So keeping the money is very, very simple. The money that you make, simply listen to your own inner voice and you will keep it. It will always be there for you. It will never run away from you. It will only run away from you if you disavow your own inner voice, your own intuition. Because that inner voice, that intuition is the voice of the creator of all creators. It's showing you what to do. It's telling you what to do. Now, regarding keeping your wealth, yeah, you can't leave it in the bank because inflation is going to kill you. The government could come in and steal it from you. The right thing to do is model, if you want to be wealthy and stay wealthy, what you have to do is model the people who are already wealthy. What do? They keep their money in foundations. Foundations that cannot be taxed. Tax-free foundations where they don't own the money, but they control the money. So you make the money, you put it in a foundation. You do what they already do. They keep it in foundations. Now, as far as investing, I'm not a genius investor, so don't come to me asking for investment advice. I do know that all of the money markets, as well as the digital currency markets, are rigged. So if you go and you start investing in the money markets, the stock market, or if you start investing in cryptocurrencies and you don't have an understanding that the game is rigged, you're probably going to lose some or all of the money that you put in. You have to understand that it is rigged. Nothing happens by chance. When money is involved, it doesn't happen by chance. There's a hidden hand at play. And the hidden hand uses a special code to communicate what they're going to do. This is going to sound crazy, they use numerology. Numerology is their code. If you can understand the numbers, you can understand where to put your money. And what you really need to do to understand this is read the comments at boldanddetermined.com. Go back over the last 42 episodes or so and read all of the comments, because there's a commenter there named TS who's given some great helpful tips about making money in the stock market with an understanding of the numerology. And I'm going to boil it down. I'm going to boil all of his tips down into this. Learn the Fibonacci sequence, learn the stock market, learn day trading, put those two together. You see, everything in this earth follows the numbers. The numbers create everything on this earth. In the Kabbalah, which is what all of the puppet masters ascribe to, it states that God created the earth, merging the letter with the number with the word. And we know from the Freemason episodes that they love the numbers. So you've got to know the numbers if you want to succeed in this world. Everybody who does succeed in the world understands the numbers mean something. And the Fibonacci sequence, it's very easy to understand. It starts with number 0 and number 1. Then you take 0 and you take 1 and you add them together. You get a 1. So you have 0 and then 1. And then you add that, then you get another 1. So now you have 1. And to get to the next number, you just add the previous two numbers. So your first two numbers were 0 and 1. That gives you 1. Now you add 1 and 1. That gives you 2. Now you add the next two numbers, which is 2 and 1. Add 2 and 1. That's 3. Now you add 3 and 2. That's 5. Now you add 5 and 3. That's 8. Now you add 8 and 5. That's 13. You simply keep adding the previous two numbers. That's the Fibonacci sequence. You will find the Fibonacci sequence in so many things on this earth. You'll find it in fruits and vegetables and pine cones, in seeds, in spirals, and all kinds of things. You find the Fibonacci sequence. So the people that run this world, who really run the world, have a deep understanding of the laws of nature. Things like the Fibonacci sequence, things like numerology, which to an average mind, if you tell an average person that numerology plays a big part in the stock market, the money markets, and all things that happen in this world, they'll just laugh about it. And that's what happens. A normal person will always laugh at something they don't understand. And that's why they're going to stay normal, because they won't take the time to understand what they don't already understand. So if you want to make money in the stock market or trading cryptocurrencies, learn what you don't understand. Don't laugh at something you don't know about. Learn about it instead. And yes, the Bitcoin, all the cryptocurrencies are also rigged. You've got somebody who they call Satoshi, who supposedly created Bitcoin. Satoshi is a fall guy. It's a front man. All of this was designed to make you think that it was underground, that all just came out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. This was planned for a long time. The digital currency takeover was planned for a long time, but they are intelligent in the way they bring it to you to make you think that it was some underground scientist in a lab who created Bitcoin named Satoshi. Well, it wasn't. It was the same people who run the money markets and rig the money markets. It's always the same people. So understand the game is rigged, understand how the game is played, then you can play the game and not lose your money. That's all I can say about that. Mike P asks, "Hey Vic, I've been a fan of B&D since 2014 and your wisdom has changed my life. My question for your next podcast is this. If everybody decided to stop paying taxes overnight, what could they really do to us?" Well, the answer is they couldn't do anything to you. A better question to ask is, would you be able to get anybody to do that? And the answer is no, you wouldn't, because people are fearful, because there's been a very concerted effort to get people to live in a state of fear, because when people live in a state of fear, they are easy to control. When there is no fear, there is no control. So fear and control go hand in hand. And because people believe that some bad thing will happen to them if they don't pay taxes, they will pay taxes. If everybody didn't pay taxes, what could they possibly do? The answer is nothing. Could do nothing. But it doesn't matter, because everybody is not going to act in concerto. What's going to happen is that people are going to continue living their lives in fear. And the herd will always have a herd mentality, and they will always follow the leader of the herd. There's an old joke that says two cows were talking to each other. One cow says, I overheard the farmer talking, and you're not going to believe this, but they're going to kill us and eat us. And the other cow says, no way, man, you're crazy. Let's go back to eating. So people are going to be the way they're going to be. The only thing you can do is accept people. The only thing you can do is accept this world for being the way that it is. You can't change the world. All you can do is change yourself. And when you change yourself, you start to accept the world for the way that it is. Not the way you wish it to be, but the way that it is. This world is the way that it is, and people act the way that they act. Can you change it? No, you can't. When you try to change it, the only thing that happens is that you become like them. Kavitha asks, how does one escape the cycle of birth and death, in your opinion, Victor? This is a question about reincarnation. And reincarnation is real. No matter what you think, it's real. It really happens. The people in this world are recycled. Over and over, we are recycled. We get actually tricked into coming back to this world over and over and over again, because this world needs worker bees. It needs people to do the work. I told you don't actually have to work to make money. A few have figured that out. A few understand that you don't have to work to make money. The rest of the people will work for you. So that's the secret. That's the trick that is being played on us. If we want to escape the cycle of birth and death, which is reincarnation, when the answer is so subtly obvious, all you have to do is listen to your own inner voice, your own intuition. Your own intuition will always guide you to doing the right thing. You must become beyond good and evil. And when people hear that, they think, you've got to be evil. If you're beyond good and evil, that means you're going to be evil. When the reality is quite different. If you are beyond good and evil, you are beyond the law. It means you listen to your own law, your own intuition, and your own intuition always guides you to do the right thing. You will never commit heinous crimes or do harm to other people or other people's property if you follow your own intuition. It will never happen. It's only when laws are created and enforced that people become criminals. It's only when these things happen that you have bad karma. When you always listen to the inner guiding light, the inner voice, you always stay away from bad karma. You never develop bad karma. If you don't have bad karma, As the religions of the world teach us, if you don't have bad karma, you can ascend to the next level. But you must also be aware that you are being tricked to come into this world. And I really can't get too deep into this. If you're interested in this topic, there has been a great discussion in the Bold and Determined comments section that I would suggest you follow. Look for podcast number 41, 40, and read the comments and read all the links in there, because it's going to get very, very deep into the world of reincarnation and what it really means to ascend and what it really means to be in this world in the first place. I don't want to get into it right now because the message is not ripe. It's not ready. The soup is not ready to take off of the heat just yet. So go read it, and hopefully we'll get into it in some future articles. Seth D asks, why do secret societies and esoteric cults get formed and persist throughout history, all the way from the ancient Sumerian, Babylonian, and Egyptian civilizations to our present age, synthesizing and passing on knowledge kept from the masses? That's a great question. Here's the answer. The people that have access to this unknown knowledge, which is what we call esoteric knowledge, the people who have access to this knowledge, they love the sense of being unique and being privileged and having secret information. That's the psychology of any sort of secret esoteric society. And that is why they continue to grow and to flourish. It's the mindset. It's the psychology of loving, being unique, and having privileged information. Privileged information is the elixir of the elitists. It gives them a sense of power, and the ego of the modern man, the modern human, loves this sense of power. So that's why secret societies persist and will always persist. Gives you a sense of power over others. Even though this knowledge would probably help all people in the world, but this sense of inner power that you get when you understand some of this stuff, it can be too great for many people in the world to just give away. It's like asking, why doesn't a rich man give money to beggars on the street? Well, he wants that money for himself. Simple as that. Adriano asks, is global warming fake? Is there instead an upcoming mini ice age? All right, to answer the first question first, global warming is fake for sure, 100%. Is the world getting hotter? Of course not. Don't you think you would recognize it if it were? It's not getting hotter. All of the research actually suggests there is going to be a mini up-and-coming ice age. I don't know when this is going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen. All I know is that all of the information we get from the media is a bold-faced lie. So if they're telling you there's global warming, you can assume the opposite is true. In fact, there's going to be global cooling. You can always assume everything that they say is a lie, and that the opposite of what they say is actually the truth. That's what happens. And that's one reason I'm getting away personally from all kinds of content. Even YouTube, even podcasts. I'm taking a break from all content. And that's part of why I'm stopping the podcast. I must take a break from this content because all of the knowledge of all of the world is already in your inner intuition, in your inner vision. And you can look to yourself to find the answers to every question. You can know what is real and what is false by looking inside of yourself. So that's what I plan to do. RH asks, why do people travel so much today? That's a great question. And as a traveling man myself, I have a lot to say about that. You could say that I'm a pilgrim in this world. But you know what? I'd actually like to answer that question via the written word. There isn't too much more I want to say. All I want to do is put the message in the right format that I can, and that format is the written word. So I do hate to cut this episode short, but I'm going to have to. I'm going to talk about why do people travel so much in this modern age. I will talk about that in an up-and-coming article. And until we meet again, my friendly friends, have a nice day.